Hey guys, Clover here. Before I get into mining, for those of you guys watching my stream after the fact, I wanted to go over this vlog that I've been doing the last 5 days. So this is the fifth day, I guess you could say. It's May 4th. It's third back in the States, but the contracts that I've kind of gotten diversified into have had their ups and downs from time to time. Just recently, when we were looking at the contracts last night, like PoCG, which is like my third largest investment in terms of the smart contracts. I'm gonna zoom in here so you guys can kind of see this. I only got an ETH in there, but it's been performing the best of all the contracts. So you can see on the first, I got 0.15 ETH, almost got 0.1 ETH on the second, 0.17 ETH on the third, 0.12 ETH. And I've only got an ETH in there. And so because of the volatility in that 25%, it's been much more profitable than the other two, which I'm holding quite a bit more ETH in. One of the other things is just kind of as the value of Ethereum has been coming up, you know, it's come up basically about $120 over the last 4 days or so. I'm making quite a bit in just kind of the valuation of that going up as well. So like for today, I made $183 or $189 over the last 24 hours. This one got pushed over a little bit later than I like, so it's probably not a full 24 hours, so it's a little bit lighter than some of my other days that I've had here. But I've also been documenting the volume. So you can see like the volume has really decreased. Like you saw with PoCG, when it really dropped down, there was only 10 ETH in the contract at one point, and then it jumped up to like 90, and then it's come back down. Now it's sitting at about 63. So you can see kind of the balances of some of these contracts. Proof of weak hands is continuing to kind of hold its position in terms of the amount of ETH that's in the contract, and I feel like you may start to see these stabilize a little bit. Or perhaps kind of having some of that kind of same distribution. Like for instance, like you saw here, like basically 10%. Pooh had a 10% ratio to proof of weak hands, whereas now it's probably more like 5%, and much less than some of these other contracts. And so proof of weak hands is continuing to show that it's really the safest in this new space right now. It's always having a little bit of consistency in terms of its dividend earnings because there is some volume. Recently, the volume's kind of been up and down. So you can kind of see here, like we thought it hit bottom here a little while ago as the contract kind of bottomed at like 6,700. Came up, there was a little bit of a ramp up in people getting in, and now it's kind of diving back down a little bit. So those are some of the things I kind of want to document because there's no one really doing this, and the websites that you're kind of getting into don't necessarily have a lot of this information, especially some of the information that we're seeing on DApp Radar. So DApp Radar is a great resource for some of these newer developments. Like I just went over Bancor yesterday, which has just popped up on the list. Some of these smart contracts and these different programs that are entering into the kind of Ethereum ecosystem are doing pretty well right now, and I feel like that's a really good area to kind of do some focus. As far as mining, like I've gotten into a few different mining companies, and I'm going to be documenting my progress with that here in Vietnam. There was an interesting article today on the CoinTelegraph. I put it in the description below, and it was kind of going over the overall Bitcoin mining scene. And I think that's an interesting one to kind of look at because it's essentially the trendsetter in terms of mining. There's, I would have to assume a lot more people in Bitcoin mining as opposed to other, altcoins and whatnot. And you can see the profitability here. This is a graph that's showing the profitability of the mining, which really kind of peaked in this time frame between, kind of late December, early January, when we kind of had a huge ramp up in price. There was some interesting news, like some of the Chinese operations were having, regulatory issues or whatnot, and the article kind of goes into that a little bit, and that had a lot to do with less miners on the network, which caused the profitability or the revenue from those mining streams to go up. Now, what we've seen recently here has been an increase in the hash rate. So basically, since that December timeframe, you know, when a lot of people were incentivized to get into mining because of the profitability, you saw a lot more mining operations really kind of start to come online. And so now, like as of May, you know, the Bitcoin's hash rate here is approaching an all-time high, and which of course is going to make mining Bitcoin in particular a little less profitable. I thought this was interesting too. This is kind of showing basically the distribution of the mining pools. And if we kind of zoom in here, it really is kind of going over like the Chinese dominance. And so you can see here F2, Ant Pool, BTC Guild, Slush Pool, and Ghash. So basically these top five, 50%, these are all Chinese mining operations. And so like that is a huge kind of, half of the world's, mining in China in these large pools. And so that's a pretty substantial. You kind of see a few of these other kind of companies. You can see like, you know, some of the marketing companies like BitClub have been big in this industry here. This is a little bit more of a recent, you know, over the last 3 months, you can kind of see that the mining's kind of distributed. Like, so some of the mining operations before, in terms of mining blocks, aren't online as much anymore. And so we're seeing a little bit more of a distribution. But anyways, I put that article in the description below, and I think it's a good thing to kind of contemplate as you're kind of getting into mining with some of these cryptocurrencies. I want to do a little bit more in-depth stuff on that process and profitability. The smart contracts is more of like a wait and see game, and that's kind of what I'm really trying to show with the progress here. There's not a whole lot of people or websites that are really documenting some of this data right now, and I think it's important because you're going to see like over time you'll see some different trends in the market. So like, for instance, the big one that I'm kind of looking at is the total ETH that's in these contracts. And so that's like the balance of these. So you can see like proof of weak hands is composing a pretty substantial portion of the balance of these contracts. And we were at like 8,000, you know, May 1st, and now it's kind of progressing down a little bit. And I'm basically holding out on the sidelines. I was going to take a third of my dividend earnings and reinvest into these contracts. As the balances have been going down, I'm kind of holding out. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that amount that I would have placed into reinvestment in these contracts, which I'm keeping track of right here. So basically, like if I put these together, let's see what that is. So it's like 0.4 ETH when I look at those. So 0.4 ETH that I'm looking to reinvest. Right now, I'm just going to hold on to that. And perhaps, I know there's a few different projects that are coming online that could be interesting to invest in. Maybe if I get it up to like an ETH or something, and that would be something for me to invest into the right project. But right now, I think the distribution that I've got is working pretty well. And that's kind of what I would recommend for the smart contracts. And, you know, roughly, I would say like 85% of what you're willing to risk in these smart contract portfolios, I like in proof of weak hands. And then, maybe like, kind of a split ratio between Pooh and proof of Craig Grant. I think proof of Craig Grant, like dropping down into like 10 Ethereum in the contract is, I don't think you're going to see that from like a platform like Pooh, which makes me think that Pooh's going to be a little bit more a contract that's maybe going to be better for like the long term, as like kind of like a one that's going to continue to be around for some time. It kind of appeals to a different market demographic, and I think that could be seen as something that's a little bit more simplistic as opposed to the proof of weak hands. Because I mean, there's still a lot of people that, if you're trying to get into this particular area, proof of weak hands could be seen as a little bit intimidating. If you don't know a whole lot about cryptocurrency, you don't really understand how these contracts work. You know, maybe Bitcoin, just buying Bitcoin or getting into that was big enough of a deal. You start getting into the altcoins and then these smart contracts. It's a very different world, and these contracts can drop. I mean, proof of Craig Grant. I mean, that was over 300 not too long ago. You know, a few days back, like at the time that I was kind of doing this, it was 300 on the first. You know, it dropped all the way to 10. So like pretty much everything evaporated from the contract, and I was kind of writing it off. I was like, well, you know, I got like half of that back in dividends from basically the volume and the volatility in that contract. You know, I was figuring it, you know, as a little bit of a loss, but now with kind of the return in volume into that contract, it's getting back into a point where it will end up being profitable, where I would have put 1 ETH in, I would have been able to pull 1 ETH out and still have an ETH worth of coins in the contract. So that's an interesting way of kind of looking at some of these contracts, is like my overall value in the amount of ETH that I have invested in some of these, you know, perhaps has gone down, but I am also like getting a little bit of a stable source of dividend earnings. You can see on a daily basis, like, you know, roughly around averaging about, you know, $200 a day right now. So we'll see how that goes. I'm going to document this for the month of May, and we'll see kind of where things are at, how volumes worked. I mean, this is so new, and I think that just kind of, you know, maybe getting past some of the emotional ways of looking at some of these contracts and ways of kind of the emotional investing, kind of getting in and getting out, like that's kind of part of the thing. Like, you know, people spreading, you know, different things. Like these contracts are designed to reward people who are getting in and holding, and that you're being rewarded through dividend earnings. And so if you can't, like, it hasn't even been a week. It's been like 4 days, and there's just been so much change in this space. And I would have to anticipate, you know, there's been rumors of this like FOMO 3D project coming out with proof of weak hands, which should be, I believe it's designed to increase the amount of volume of trading that's in that contract, which in turn increases the dividend earnings for people in the contract. But there might be some newer projects that would be worth getting into. So right now, as the balances that I'm seeing of people that are invested in these contracts, as it's kind of slowly decreasing, I'm kind of sitting on the sidelines. Once I see that kind of dip and start to kind of take off and come up again, I think that's going to be the right time to reinvest. I'll check in with the chat a little bit. What's going on, Mike? Penny Pincher. P3D. Let's see here. Like I haven't been making as much in P3D as some of the other contracts. Like, so here I made like 54 bucks today. Looking at Pooh, like I made 38 bucks. Proof of Craig Grant, which is the volatility, has been like another $100 day. So those are my three. You know, those are totaling up to, it's about 180, 190 bucks today. But I'm going to be pulling those out, clearing out those contracts again, and just starting from scratch every day. So that's the plan. You see a new whale YouTube channel? No. What's the name of it? Let's take a look at what's going on in the market. I haven't talked about that in a little bit. Ethereum was way up a little bit. It's leveled off here. I was seeing a much larger change in percentage. I guess it's being reflected a little bit differently here. Nano up 20%. This Loom network. I don't know much about this. Electronium, Nano, Gas, Augur. You can kind of see some of the ones. This 0x project is intriguing to me. Like, I'm still kind of learning about it. I'm kind of figuring out how it works. But it's been trending, this 0x Bitcoin project. I don't know enough about it. I was watching a couple of videos on it. It just was kind of a little bit confusing for me. Let's take a look at, I want to show like some of the trade volume in some of the exchanges, because that, well, Binance now is back on top. It's one that's been kind of changing a little bit. As we've seen, like this OKEX, we saw Upbit took over the top spot for a little while. Upbit's been trading a lot. You can see EOS is really just it's the #1 currency in these smaller markets. It's #1 being traded in Korea. EOS is just really the big trending coin right now, with the anticipation with it, you know, starting to hit the markets. Down a little bit today, 6%. You look at the 47 video I sent you. Yeah, I think I, what did I look at? Yeah, because I think you left it on a comment or something. I believe I looked at it for a little while. I don't know, I can't remember. I might have to watch it again. All right, guys, I think I'm gonna call the stream. I'll get on tomorrow, and we'll see how this space has changed. It seems like there's something new every day. So I'll let you know how that goes. All right, see you guys on the next one.